All right, great. So, yeah, I've been around the space for a bit. I have a security background, so I tend to think of things from a security perspective, and um, was at Fortify and did DevSecOps with GitLab. I'm now focused on cloud asset management at Firefly, but even though it's not a security tool, it certainly has some security and compliance benefits, and I think it behooves everyone to understand how cloud management plays into your risk posture. So, this is an AI discussion. So I asked AI, Chat GPT, what what do you think my audience is going to care about? And particularly when it comes to cloud infrastructure. And to the earlier presenter's point about trusting what comes out of things like Chat GPT. From personal experience, I can tell you that sometimes it does make things up. You really need to vet it and read it before you post anything that comes from it. But I fully expect that it's going to improve, and it's come so far in just a year. Can you imagine what it'll be like in a year from now? So maybe at some point you won't have to vet things as carefully as you do now. But the insight that ChatGPT provided is probably right. Data security and privacy are top of mind, I'm sure, for everyone on this webinar, on this call. And audit and monitoring are certainly important elements of compliance and risk management. The cloud itself, though, can be a really big challenge. Cloud infrastructure is by its very nature dynamic and changes constantly. So keeping up with those changes while continuously being compliant is certainly challenging. Ensuring that your cloud configurations remain in line with your regulatory requirements and that you're rectifying your compliance issues is is more challenging in a cloud environment potentially than in an on-premise, more traditional legacy environment. I hope that by the end of my session, you'll understand how good cloud management can solve some of these challenges, and I have some ideas for steps you can take to achieve it. I think the first thing is to start with a mindset. And if you heard me present on another webinar with Ron, I really, really believe that this piece is true. So I've repeated this one slide here because it goes beyond just thinking about security and security assessments and compliance assessments. This Gartner article says CIOs must change their line of questioning from "is the cloud secure" to "am I using the cloud securely?" And this same approach really holds true for governance and compliance. So are we using the cloud in a way that is governed and compliant with the regulatory requirements and policies that we must meet? It goes way beyond inspections and assessments. It really gets to the processes and the very root of good cloud management and controls. So let's unpack that just a little bit. What does better cloud management look like? I would argue that it starts with visibility. Um, you can't control what you can't see or don't know that you have. So you need visibility across all of your cloud resources. My research shows that mono cloud, people only using one cloud, is pretty, I won't say rare, 20 to 25% of my survey respondents use only one cloud. The vast majority use multiple clouds. And so seeing across clouds, seeing across your SaaS application configurations, all of that is super important. And not only seeing it, but understanding the history. Who changed what, where, when amongst all these configurations and resources? And you need governance processes to manage the changes to those. So given that cloud changes continuously, it goes to figure that the change management processes have to be automated to be effective. And policies need to be automated as well. We call that policies as code. It applies a policy automatically and consistently across your entire cloud. And it can look for, those policies could be for security, reliability, cost, variety of things. And those things are interrelated. So lots of times you'll find a tool that optimizes for cost or that optimizes for security, but it may do so at the detriment to other things. In fact, there are security tools that will change your cloud configurations. And now you may have less reliability, or it may have other downstream impacts. So you really can't look myopically at these things. You need to look holistically. And so, and one last point, a good cloud management methodology or process or approach requires disaster recovery, the ability to roll back changes and restore configurations that could get deleted, corrupted, or ransomed. So let's take a look at, if to look forward, I think we need to look backwards just a little bit. Let's look back at a solution that in the on-premise infrastructure has been proven and is key, and that is Configuration Management Database, CMDB. So if you're in risk management, you probably are familiar with CMDB. It's a one-stop shop for your inventory of all of your IT assets. At least it was before cloud. All of your IT assets, what was their state, what was their version number, what was their health status, and understanding how everything was related to one another. So if I do something with this switch, who gets affected downstream, for instance. And that CMDB was really at the heart of IT asset management and service management. And it provided a single source of truth and one place that you could go for auditing, troubleshooting, and really for all of your IT needs. Cloud forward organizations really need this for the cloud, and it has been lacking. That ephemeral nature of cloud really challenges those traditional vendors that provide CMDB and IT asset management. If we dig into cloud just a little bit and understand the challenges here, there's a saying that no man steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and it's not the same man. Cloud is like that. If you do an inventory today, it's going to be very different tomorrow. In fact, it may be very different 5 minutes from now. So it has to be continuous. Your processes have to be continuous. And software-defined infrastructure that uses these broad sets of configurations to determine things like access, resource utilization, data storage, and all. They're super vast and super impactful, but they get changed, sometimes pretty easily. And the settings differ from cloud to cloud, from tool to tool. And all of this creates a very opaque environment. So if you're trying to track down, you're trying to do an audit or troubleshoot something, and you're trying to trace things like, how did this access privilege get escalated, or who created this S3 bucket? Sometimes that can be super challenging. Another challenge is, whose responsibility is it to set these configurations for cloud infrastructure? I mentioned I've got the State of the IAC Infrastructure as Code report. I'll give you a reference for that later, but I just finished the survey for this year's report, and I've been digesting that information. And there's definitely a shift. There's a shift from DevOps towards a new role called platform engineering, and from cloud operations over to platform engineering. So this is a pivotal point where you should be involved. As someone that's responsible for setting controls in the organization, you really need to be involved in this. So, when computing is on premise, you can control access to the physical devices, but when it's in the cloud, the teams that are responsible there can be several, and in fact they can clubber one another in their settings and things. So democratization is really a mixed blessing. It requires better automation and guardrails to really ensure that those that are less familiar with the cloud configurations and their downstream impact don't accidentally create huge risks and compliance issues. Gartner really punctuated this in their forecast here, where they said that most cloud breaches will be due to misconfigurations. These are mistakes by end users, whether intentional or malicious, or accidental. They're misconfigurations. Coincidentally, the the 2021 State of Cloud Security found that 20% of those surveyed were not monitoring their clouds for misconfigurations. So it's a little bit of a perfect storm. And now we're going to add in the mix of AI. So, AI is good and bad in this environment. So it can help automate testing processes. It can assist in code reviews. It can give you predictions based on historical analysis to predict issues, bugs, resource constraints, so that you can be more proactive in addressing them. It can assist developers and operations team in troubleshooting issues and provide guidance on best practices. It can analyze coding templates. So infrastructure as code is an important part of that. It's basically a template for how your infrastructure gets deployed. AI can help with that, and lead to better compliance, better best practices. So all of these things can help you be more efficient and consistent in compliance. But close your eyes for one moment and think about what could happen if any of these things went wrong. So again, I just caution that at the current stage, today's stage of AI, vetting your AI practices is super important, and having those guardrails in place. At Firefly, we use generative AI to create infrastructure as code templates and policy as code. Our customers can create custom policies, usually for things, there's best practices that we capture as open source policies like OPA, Open Policy Agent. Those things are built in. But then you probably have many of your own bespoke policies that are unique to your environment. AI can help you write those policies, and then write them in a machine readable language that can be applied automatically. And we call that policies as code. They're automated, they're repeatable, and when they're done well, they can improve consistency and traceability. So how do we leverage AI for cloud operations in a way that's governed? It really comes back to better cloud management, better visibility, better governance, and better cloud asset management. The one way to do that is through cloud asset management that I would argue is sort of the next generation CMDB for cloud infrastructure. What makes it next generation? Well, it's the ability to provide real-time continuous inventory that changes as your cloud changes at the same speed. It creates that visibility of your actual cloud infrastructure. So what's really there, not what you think is there, not what you modeled, not what you intended, but what's actually there. And it makes it possible to see who changed what, where, when, and allows you to even roll back to previous versions of cloud configurations. I think there was an attack recently where someone's, I don't know if it was their Okta configurations, Okta being an identity access management tool, but where some configurations were held ransom, and they had to let them go. And how do you get back to those settings? If you think about, controlling the cloud is like this big cockpit of multiple levers that you can adjust to your risk appetite, to your methods. What if all that gets blown away and you have to start over? It's really important to capture these configurations, and cloud asset management can help you do that. So it can give you more control through a codified cloud, visibility across your entire multi-cloud infrastructure, improved reliability. So if you think about guardrails that enable developers to be empowered and agile, but at the same time to do so in a safe, secure way, it can improve your efficiency. Our State of the IAC report showed the efficiency gains can be pretty phenomenal, actually. And the bottom line, keeping your cloud, as we call, up to code or aligned to its intended or desired state. This is how cloud asset management can help you. So I would encourage you to look at Firefly. Our cloud asset management platform can help you achieve a well-managed cloud. We do have a free trial. This is something that I would encourage you to share this presentation and this link with your DevOps, platform engineering, and site reliability teams. It's probably something that you would care deeply about the results, but you need them in order to implement. And I'd love to meet with folks and show you more if you want to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. So, in the spirit of all these superhero movies, governance begins with a well-managed cloud. You can be the heroes. You are the guardians of an organization's risk. So you can champion cloud governance, best practices, and controls. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help convince your teams of that. And one last thing, if you want to look at these topics deeper and understand the role that infrastructure as code plays, policies as code, um, even what is infrastructure as code. I've put together some blog articles that I recommend that you take a look at. If you go to our blog site, they're all there. Yeah, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Ron, see if there's any questions.